Hey everyone, welcome to ValleyChat Pastor John Karolus here with Maryanne Krueger, one of our Shepherd members and a long-term part of our family. Maryanne, how are you doing today? And what are some of the things people might see you doing around Shepherd?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Um, so I usually am at the Mountain View campus, but I do go to the Shea campus. I used to be a reader there until my eyes went bonko. I sang as part of the worship team there, and occasionally I would sing at the Mountain View campus. I'm one of the facilitators of the Thursday morning Bible study, and I was part of the Family Promise coordinators for about 5 years. And that might be enough. Yeah.
You also have a professional uh, uh, work in vocal lessons, right? And so some of those
Yes.
recitals happen at Shepherd too.
I have a voice studio and I teach private lessons. And yes, in fact, our next recital, student recital, is going to be Saturday the 9th at the Mountain View campus. And
Okay, great.
Bruce Jeffers is the sound tech, and he's always such a big help, and he's so wonderful. So yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
event. Love it.
he's great. He's great. He's definitely got the knowledge of the room and knows how to make
Oh,
that space just sing great.
so good. So good.
Now, another thing that happens at Mountain View on Sundays that many people might not know about is the work of the prayer team, which you are a part of.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about kind of how that's gone over the last few years?
Okay, well, this latest iteration of the prayer team was started when we were doing the building campaign before this one. And Jenny Zender, when she and Steve were at our campus, she's the one that said, well, we really ought to have like some prayer ministry things going on. I know it's great. So she started it. And then, of course, they left. And it stayed with Rick and Tammy Marks, Donna Nelson, Diane Winningham, Karen Patterson, and me are basically the ones that still go over to the cross and meet people for prayer. I have been part of the prayer ministry at Shepherd for years in different formats. So I know that there's some amazing prayer warriors there. I've been
Mm.
witness to it, and um, yeah, it's a blessing and it really is needed.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced it myself in either things happening in my life or prayer requests I've shared, and another thing that you share with the congregation is a list of ongoing prayer requests that's kind of shared between anyone who would like to be a part of our praying community in general. That's kind of more of an email thing, but I
Yeah.
love the in person ministry that you and Rick and Tammy and Donna and Karen are all a part of. I mean, it's such a necessary part of the Christian walk, and I think sometimes it's easy for it to sort of go by the wayside in modern Christianity and modern churches because we all have a lot of things on our schedule and different things happening before church and after church. But so to take the time to actually sit down and share with someone the burdens or the joys that are on our hearts is really important. And I want to just thank you for your participation in that and helping to
Well,
be there for
know,
people.
I know that prayer is so very important, and Lutherans are not typically known for praying out loud. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure all of the members have a great personal prayer life, but when you ask someone to pray out loud, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I don't really do that." And to have us pray with you, it's not like you have to do anything. You just tell us what's on your heart, what you need prayer for, and we do the praying, and you just stand there and receive it. So it's a pretty easy thing to do if people recognize that, man, something's really burdening my heart, or I've got somebody that I need to pray for. To have other people intercede on your behalf is so important. And I don't know that a lot of people recognize that. But
Yeah, and they may even, not know that it's available in such an accessible way,
yeah,
and yet, in Scripture, we have so many examples of people praying together, marking
yeah.
significant events through prayer, acknowledging God's involvement in their lives through prayer. The Psalms is practically a 150 chapter prayer book, that we can just go through and pray. Is there any particular kind of, scriptural prayer or story about prayer in the Scriptures that resonates particularly with you?
I think probably, and I had a little metal plaque that I stuck in my car and it just said, pray without ceasing.
Mm.
And that probably is the one thing that sticks with me all the time, that It's not just a one-time throw it up to God. This is an ongoing relationship. It's an ongoing conversation with him, and that's what he wants is relationship with us. Um, so the more that you can pray or community prayer, things like that, I feel like the closer you can get to God just because you're creating that relationship with him.
Yeah, something special happens when you enter into kind of
Mm,
that the relational space of sharing the prayers of somebody else, kind of bearing each other's souls together toward God and inviting him in to take action and to be a part of what's happening. Of course he already is, but to take that
totally.
step of really wanting to understand how and asking him to move in certain ways. He invites us to do that. He commands us to do that. And so we want to
Yes.
embrace that as well. Absolutely. So uh, if you're okay with sharing, have you seen prayer make a difference for people? I know it's kind of a probably an obvious answer, but any specific examples that just kind of keep you praying as when maybe you hit a struggling season?
Last year when I was going through all my eye surgeries and I'm the one that had the patch on most of the time and looked like a pirate. Um, but all through that time, I really struggled with being able to pray for myself. I've never been particularly good at that. I'm good at praying for a lot of other people, but I don't pray for myself really well. And my Bible study and the prayer chain lifted me up so consistently that I could feel God's presence. And yeah, I even went through like a dark night of the soul and just felt like he wasn't listening and he wasn't there for me. And I was constantly reminded that yes, he was. He was there with me, walking through it with me, just not answering quite as quickly as I would have liked him to, and maybe not in the way that I wanted him to. But yeah, I've seen it in the prayers that we offer in our Bible study. We have a dedicated time on Thursday mornings that we lift up prayer and pray for each other, pray for different needs. And I've definitely seen prayer answered through those things. Um, just little miracles and not always the way that I would expect it to be answered. But yeah, he answers. He hears us, he answers, and we just have to be patient for his timing and accept whatever his answers are. That's
One
a
of the
hard.
most Yeah, one of the thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah,
And to have been a part of the team kind of holding you up, in prayer during that trial, and even as sometimes it continues in certain ways.
it does.
It really it's an honor to carry someone in prayer as they
Yeah,
are going through a difficult season, and we have that opportunity to do that every day. And God brings us into contact with people as they go through their own personal situations, and we don't know how many people they are connected with. I don't know if I'm the only person that is praying for someone in my life, or if they've got 800 people who are all connected. Either way, God is active and busy in response to those prayers and through those prayers,
that
which
such
is
a good point that it really is an honor to pray for each other. When someone asks if you would pray for them, it's like, "Oh, yes, I would love to do that." It takes your eyes off of maybe what you're going through at the time too to be able to pray for others.
one of my favorite things to share with people or remind people of about God's work in the world is that He, of course, intervenes providentially and divinely in different ways and miraculous ways, akin to the expectations we have maybe from just sort of the stereotypes about God's work. But at the same time, He works through ordinary ways. He works through the community of faith in powerful ways. And so we often are displaying God to each other, to our brothers and sisters in faith, to our family members at Shepherd, to our friends and neighbors who might not have any kind of spiritual background.
Mhm.
And prayer is one of those concrete, personal, conversational ways that we can step into that deeper connection with somebody. And so I always want to remind people of that opportunity they have, really to be God's love for someone, and to if not, in some profound and poetic way, verbally right with them in the moment, when they're reminded of it later, say that person was a conversation they had in the morning, and in the evening before they go to bed, they think of that situation. It's like, that's God prompting you, engage and intercede for them, put up your prayers for them, because you've been chosen for that. That's one of the, we're going to be talking about First Peter for a couple of weeks over a Mountain View this summer. And Peter talks about, the Christian community is a chosen people. It's a nation of priests who offer pleasing sacrifices, which would be our prayers and worship to God, because Christ is interceding for us. So we have that invitation, and it's a powerful, powerful thing. Now, some people are less confident in their prayer skills. Some
Yeah.
people are very uncomfortable praying out loud, or maybe have never invited the conversation with someone. Can I pray with you? Um, are there people on the prayer team, or would you be someone that would kind of just talk people through the very basics of praying for someone?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think any of us would be willing to do that. I know when we first started off in our Bible study, one of the studies that we did was what happens when women pray. And it actually taught us how to pray out loud. And we would gather in just small groups throughout the room, and you'd go around the circle and you'd just lift up a prayer. And it was uncomfortable at first, but after you get used to doing it, it really makes it such a beautiful communication with God. You know, you're speaking with him and you're waiting for him to answer. So
Yeah.
yeah, think I think any of us would be willing to do that.
One of the passages of scripture that I go back to again and again, and of course it's super cliche, but that's all right. It's the Lord's Prayer, right? The disciples want to learn how to pray, and they've been following around Jesus for months or years, and they want to know, what's the formula, what's the process, and He gives them the Lord's Prayer. And
Uh-huh,
I always direct people there, not only to say we should be praying this every day, but also Martin Luther talks about this in the Small and the Large Catechisms. It's the most comprehensive prayer someone could pray, and from it, we can actually shape prayers that follow the same pattern. And
uh-huh.
we can list out what are those daily needs that we have, and we can list them out. What are the trespasses that I'm still hanging on to, that I'm working on forgiving towards someone else, or what am I really suffering under the guilt of, that I'm asking God to forgive me for? And so each of the petitions there we can expand on and dig into and spend time in. And I just think that's such a rich vein for someone to really explore as they're maybe taking the early steps in their prayer journey. Is there aside from pray continually, is there maybe a character of the Bible whose prayer actions inspire you, or maybe just in the church tradition as well? Anybody that just inspires you to pray?
Um, I won't necessarily pick out characters in the Bible, but my mother-in-law was a great
Mm,
influence on my prayer life, and um, just the things she would say and the kind of woman that she was. It would be like I talked about, it would be a conversation with God. It wasn't a formal, you don't have to tell him all these fancy words. All you have to do is just I I phrase it like I'm talking to him, like we're having a conversation. And I feel like that's the best way for him to know us and for us to know him, is just to make it like you're talking to a friend.
yeah.
So yeah, mother-in-law was a big influence on me.
I she hasn't been around for a while, but a shout out to Bria Carter, who was our intern for a
Oh,
year as a director of Christian education. But she was someone who had that instinct where it was like if we had a conversation and I shared something that was challenging, or just something that was taking a lot of my attention, she'd just be like the first one to say, "Hey, let's pray about it." And before she'd leave the room, it would be a prayer was said, and it really pushed me to recognize when God's prompted me to say, well, why don't we just pray about that right now? I mean, I could tell you I'm going to pray for you if you're going through a hard time, or if you've shared something super personal, and I'll say, oh, I'll keep you in my prayers. But what about in that moment? We have that opportunity, and so she's someone that kind of inspired me toward that, and
well,
I'm working on it,
also,
trying to get better,
yeah.
right? Uh,
But
Not
also,
perfect, but
when you tell someone, "I'll pray for you," you darn well better pray for 'em, and I have been just as guilty as anyone of saying, "Oh, I'll pray for you," and then realizing that I haven't, and, you're just promising something really big, and you need to follow through with it. So, yeah, I think, it's easy to forget that there are people that are hurting and that there are people that really need our prayers. Just even doing the family promise this past week was those people really need our prayers, whether they're believers or not. They need help in their lives.
yeah, it's such a s- small in terms of effort, maybe. It's just, oh, it's a thought or it's a word, but it makes such a big impact, and it's such an important part of us growing in our faith and understanding, like you have been saying, is understanding the heart of God in a more deep way. So now, we would love to expand the prayer team ministry at Shepherd
Yeah.
across both of our campuses. We would love to be able to say every Sunday that there's a team of people available just to lift up the needs of the community or to
Mhm.
celebrate the joys that are there. If someone wants to become a part of it or just learn a little bit more, where could I or where could someone listening point them to become a part of the team?
Well, honestly, if you don't see any of us visibly, or you don't feel like coming up to us under the cross, for them to talk to you, and then you can put us in contact with them, however you want to do it. Because it would be great to have more members, more prayer warriors. Right now, we pretty much split. One of us takes a week every month, and we're over there by the cross, and we have that kind of set out. But to have other people involved would be awesome. And to start it at the Shea campus, I don't know how the other pastors feel about it, or if there would be a dedicated place that could happen. But you know, eh, just to get more Lutherans praying out loud, let's say that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. I
sure
don't know if it's a theological tradition or maybe just a Germanic kind of a cultural influence where
I would go with
we
that.
tend to be a little more reserved, a little less out there. But be bold, and yeah,
Yeah.
reach out to me, to Karen, Pastor Allen, or Pastor Scott. They also would love to be a part of connecting you to the prayer team. Thanks, Maryanne, for sharing so much today and sharing some of your heart and the work that you do. Thank you for the prayers that you offer and the list that you maintain.
If
And
you
yeah,
have
thank you everyone
prayer
for tuning in.
and I was gonna say, if you have prayer requests, we have a prayer chain, an email prayer chain you can contact. I send out a weekly
Yeah.
bulletin every
If you
Monday.
want to get a part of, if you need people praying over you right now,
Yes.
yeah,
Uh,
reach out, send an email,
yep.
contact the church office. We'll get you on that list. And yeah, it's an honor to chat with you, Maryanne. Thanks for being a part of our Shepherd family and continuing to serve your neighbors in these powerful ways. And everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next time and be sharing different topics throughout the summer as we explore our Christian faith together. Have a great week.